Perfect. I'm Magali Paris.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Sorry, my voice is a bit weak since yesterday. So I will be sure to introduce our meeting. Thank you so much. Savatika in Thai.
Thank you for inviting us.
That means welcome. And thank you so much to accept this meeting and this discussion with us. So I'm landscape architect and professor at Versailles School of Architecture. And since it's the third year that I lead this teaching, it's a seminar, and we focus our attention to ASEAN firms in different ASEAN countries. And the students, it's a group of 20 students, and they are focusing on one firm and one or several projects, depending on the different production of the different firms. And so 5 students are working on your firm, on Bangkok, Tokyo architecture. And they will introduce themselves and introduce how they pay attention to different projects you produce. So it's Natalia, Vitor, Valerie, Lucas, and Massimiliano. So I give them the lead. They will make everything during this interview. And thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for meeting us. We're in this class in the Versailles School of Architecture, but we're actually all exchange students. So I'm Natalia, I'm from Brazil, and these are my friends.
Vitor, I'm also from Brazil.
Hello, I'm Valerie. I'm from Estonia.
Hello, I'm Lucas. I'm from Brazil.
Hi, I'm Massimiliano. I'm from Italy.
Nice to meet you all. I'm Wtanya, and this is Takahiro.
I'm Takahiro.
Yeah.
So now we would ask you for shortly introducing yourselves.
Yeah, maybe I can go first and then you can go after. So my name is Wtanya and I am Thai, but I studied my master's and I worked in Japan for quite a while, and that's where I met my partner Takahiro. I did my master's in Japan, and then I also worked a while in Switzerland, and then I came back to Japan to work in some Japanese offices before I left Japan at 2017, and then we moved to Thailand together to establish our firm.
I'm Takahiro Kume. I study architecture in Japan, and then after that I work at 3 Japanese architecture firms, which is small scale and medium, large scale company. After that, yeah, we established BTA together.
Okay, thank you. So if it's okay, we're gonna introduce our questions to you.
Do you agree that in your project you focus on the context of future buildings?
Can you sort of elaborate on that a bit of what you mean by future buildings?
Could you say it differently?
Yeah, maybe you can say it differently or...
Future building means our project or surrounding building or
Contemporary, I don't know.
I think I'm not sure what the word future building is talking about, but if I were to refer to perhaps something that is similar within our projects or within our practice, I think it might perhaps refer to the idea that we think of design as something continuous and not something that is fixed within a certain time frame. We like to think of design or architecture that it's something that can extend into the future or extend or have something that continues to have a lifespan and lives and changes with time and isn't something that is completely static. Maybe that would answer your question.
If I add something, I think we want to connect with past as well.
With the past as
Yeah.
well, right?
Okay, thank you. Now we have a question about the clients and the relationship between you and the clients. So can you describe the relationship established between your team, the BTA, and the clients?
Okay, so we're quite a small office. So we're an office of like 4 or 5 people full-time, including me and Taka, and we have some interns, which means that whenever we get projects, we establish quite close relationships with the client. It's the regular client-architect relationship, but because our projects are mostly private residential projects, it means that the relationship between the architect and the client is much closer and much more intimate than if you would compare it to a commercial project. So, I mean, it's nothing special, but it's just a lot of housing means a lot of very close relationship with clients. When you're building their houses, you have to talk to them a lot and all of that.
And actually, we have like a little bit more questions about the same second question.
Yeah.
So how do you meet your clients?
How do we meet them? Like, so our office has been established for 6, 7 years now. At first, it was mostly from our acquaintances. So we started off the office like we were unknown, right? So it means we got projects from family and friends. And then later on, it just became like people introducing us to other people who might like our projects. Now, since the office is just a little bit more established, more and more people know our projects. So sometimes we get clients who just kind of email us and not anonymously, but just not having any relationship before, right? So right now I would say like half of the clients are from people we know, the other half are from just from people who have seen our project somewhere.
Is it important for you to to choose the clients, or do they choose you, or you choose clients, or it's both?
Okay.
I think it's both, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, client select us when they send a message.
Mm.
And then we also not select like select 強いね. Select is quite strong word.
Yeah, select is a strong word, but I think we make sure that we are the suitable architects for them. Let's say, I mean, select is, yes, a strong word. So maybe they would select us, or they would want to know us more, but we also make sure that we are really the people who they are looking for somehow after we talk to them. So it's both. Yeah.
Okay. And the last question of this group of questions, do you agree that in your project you focus on the context of future buildings, but by future buildings we mean the like proposed buildings, or like the projects that you propose to construct, to build? So like, yeah.
You mean sort of like competition proposals, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure. It can be like for competitions, or just a project that you just I'm not sure how do we work
Yeah, I mean, like I know you guys are not all from different countries and you're now based in Europe, right? I think the condition in Europe is that there are a lot of competitions, and young offices would do proposals for competitions. In Asia, it's quite different. We don't have a lot of competitions here, so most of our projects will be commissions. But in architecture, you're all the time proposing a future building, right? Because nothing has been built, and you're proposing images for something that is for the future. So in that sense, all of them are future buildings. However, we have less competitions here, so we're not making proposals that are not commissioned as much as you would in Europe, right? So they're mostly people who want us to build something that's already been. The land has been bought, and then they want to build something solid. The funds are ready, and then we're building a building. But again, all of our projects are sort of in the future, in a sense. Right? Is that what you mean?
So collaborating means the building what we design じゃない。違う。
そうそう。
だからコンペじゃないんじゃない。
いや、そうコンペじゃない。
うん。
Yeah.
うん。
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, in some way, but I have more questions actually for this kind of question again. Like in like we saw, or like we realized that you use a lot of knowledge from the context that your building or like your proposal is going to be constructed in. So do you think that you focus only on the context of the surroundings of the building, or of the project that you chose to do, or context isn't necessarily the main thing, the important like key in your design?
I think we focus on two different types of contexts, I think. One is the local context, or what we can do within our local context, or you know, what we can do within the space or the place we are in. The other context we focus on is the international context. I think we also want to do something which can be done within our context, but not solely within our context, right? So which means what we want to find something that can be done in our context, but also anywhere else in the world. So we don't want to do anything that can be done only there, or make something very, very special that is attached to one context. So we find something within a certain context, but we try to find similarities of this thing to other contexts, so that we find crossovers or overlapping characteristics within all contexts, right? So yes and no, they are, context is important to us, but at the same time, you know, both local and universal context.
Yeah, context is a very difficult word to define. For us, yes, what you said is correct, I think. So nowadays, context is becomes more like diverse, because we can meeting by using Zoom like this, or we can get information from all over the world. So if we live in Thailand, we know all over the world information, something like that. So nowadays, context is not only local context. It connects to the international context. That what Fon said. Yeah. So in that sense, we are quite focused on context, but context to me that does not mean locality.
Yes, for our group, we choose to focus in particular on the project fully in the forest. So we prepared a couple of questions about this project in particular. And yeah, looking at this project, the most characterizing element is the roof, as we noticed. But so the first question is about the technology of used for the roof, and if it was difficult to find craftsmen that were capable to use this traditional technique in that area.
Actually, this technique is not so difficult and not so traditional, actually, because of this method is just, how can I say, leaf put on the leaf. Like just overlapping. So anyone can do, I think.
Yeah, this technique is actually one of it is sort of in a way a traditional technique, but it's not a craft technique. It's a traditional local technique. So it doesn't take highly skilled people to be able to do this. And people who were living within the area in northern Thailand, everybody is familiar with this technique. So it was easy to buy, to source, to make. It was easy. However, it was difficult to apply this in a more contemporary way, I think, because everybody's used to having this in a more vernacular type building, so making was easy, but applying it to a new building typology was quite tricky.
What was in particular difficult?
Yeah,
you said that it was difficult to involve this traditional technique.
Yeah, I think what is difficult is the understanding, and this is going to be quite deep, but the understanding of the word building within a contemporary sense is very different from a vernacular, right? This type of roof, usually there is going to be some leakage because it's just leaf, right? But then within this vernacular context, slight leakage is kind of acceptable, right? But nowadays, everything has been modernized and everything has been sort of developed in a way that us inhabitants or people using the space cannot accept sort of leakage and all of these things that traditional people would have accepted, right? So trying to apply a traditional technique but also still conforming to contemporary expectations was difficult, which means we had to think of, and our roof was also quite flat, right? Because usually with these leaf thatch roof, the roof angle has to be super steep, very steep, the water would flow very quickly. We wanted to try on something different, which was more flat. So we had to think of a way to waterproof it, basically in between, sandwiching bamboos and finding a detail so that it would work on a more universal or contemporary shape roof, basically.
Yeah, in fact, the other question was about because we understood that actually you use the leaves, but also a waterproof material. So it's a kind of combination of traditional vernacular technique and a modern one. Yeah. So we were curious to know if you prepare some sample before the construction of the building to make some trial about the performance of this roof.
Yeah, we did many mock-ups actually.
Yeah, especially this project, this material is very cheap in this country, so we can just buy. So we make mock-up by ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We made mock-ups at the office by ourselves, but also when the construction started, we also asked them to make a mock-up on site. So we had more than, I think, 3 versions of the mock-up of the roof.
And a mock-up to scale 1 to 1, just to know also how. Okay. And the other question is about again the roof, but talking about in general also about all your projects, because as we saw, using common or materials that you can find on the site, or you can find on the site, you can give to the project a strong architectural character, and by some strong decisions about the design and the elements. So the main question was, how did you get this kind of roof for this project in particular? So how did you decide for this solution?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think with a lot of our projects, they're quite low budget, and then I don't know if any of you have been to Thailand, but we're in a very hot and humid climate, which means this sort of restrictions and constraints force us to think about the essential elements in space making or in making architecture, right? Because we don't have a big budget, and then we don't have, I would say, like the financial freedom, which means we think about, okay, so if we have this amount of budget, what would be the minimum element needed to create space, which the answer to us was the roof, right? And
I think the budget is just one reason. I think why the reason why we find essential element is we want to make architecture that can allow to, how can I say, join the client to make space.
So something that can be perhaps adapted or changed, right?
Yes, so that's why we don't want to control every materials and every element. So that's why what Fon said is we always try to find essential element. And I think we should explain a bit more about essential element, which is quite abstract word.
So yeah, I can explain on that. So what Taka is saying there is not only the budget, but it means that we also want to involve sort of the users or allow the architecture to change, right? So designing something that perhaps can adapt or change means we have to have something that's fixed or a rule that is clear. So that it means that the roof becomes this sort of structure or essential element which allows for constant changes, right, underneath it. So I think that's why the roof became sort of a key element in this project. In other projects, sometimes it can be columns or walls or other things, but just for this project, because it was supposed to be sort of multi-purpose space, open, and they're going to have weekend markets there, and they're going to have all different events. The roof was the only thing that would allow for this flexibility with the brief and with the context, basically.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Hello. We were very curious about the project's names. So do you have like a process to name them? Names such as House K and Hut A. So do you refer to something or just maybe enumeration?
With the namings, I think we have, it does refer to something random within the project, right? It could be like the name of the place or the name of the client or whatever, but we sort of intentionally give it a sort of anonymous name because we didn't want to lead people into thinking as to what kind of house it was, you know? We wanted to leave the project open-ended or interpretation of the project into different ways. So that's why the naming becomes a bit anonymous, just because we didn't want to define it for other people.
And another question is actually a bit of advice. So do you have the most important skills that young architects should get along with, in your opinion? Like drawing, modeling, computer.
Okay. You mean
maybe
more like hard skill, right? Like technical skill or hard skill?
Yes, maybe in this project, in this process of constructing the project, do you have like these skills in mind that we should pay attention?
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we still make lots and lots of models and do a lot of sketches in our office. I think it's important that we utilize like technology like BIM or Grasshopper, all of these new technology to make our lives easier, but it's important not to rely on them in making the project. So at the same time, we also work with our hands because we feel that it's much more intuitive, and making models and doing sketches sort of allows us to understand how things are put together. So actually, this is related to how we come up with conceptual ideas for projects, because we never come up with the idea alone. It's always paired with a construction system or how it could be built, or a technique or technicality together as an idea, right? So we don't have one or the other. We put them together through the process of sketching and model making.
Yeah, to me, sketching and writing.
Writing,
what?
like writing
text.
as well, writing text.
Yeah.
I mean,
the reason is sketch is most fastest way to communicate with others actually, because we have to communicate with client or contractor or staff or we, for example, partner. So at that time, if you only can use, I don't know, Grasshopper or Revit or ArchiCAD, it's too slow to communicate in this kind of conversation. So you can, if you can draw hand sketch, it's to me, it's very useful. But the sketching is not, don't need, you don't need to sketch like a realistic or something. If you can draw like a, how can I say, but drawing is also okay if you can communicate with others.
Yeah.
And another one is writing text.
Text.
Yeah, text is made our project to deep. How can I say, develop. Yes, so it's important to use text as, how can I say?
To define projects.
Yeah.
So we also go through a process of writing about the project.
Yes. When we think about architecture at the beginning, we always talk each other and we try to find word. And after that, when the project is finished, we always writing text quite, how can I say, focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which means text can connect to the project to future projects, I think. Yeah. So to me, this two skill is very important.
Thank you.
And what is the language you use? I'm curious about that. It's Japanese for writing.
So
or
we
it's a
speak
mix.
together. Yeah, so we speak Japanese together.
Yeah.
And then, but when we're with the office with our interns and staff, the language is English. But when I'm with the staff alone, I would speak Thai, or with the contractor, it would be Thai. So we are like a three language all the time, operating on three languages. So it's like we make sure nothing is lost in translation. We translate it again and again, make sure everybody understands the same thing. But when we write a text, if he starts first, he would start in Japanese and I would translate that, and then we would feed back both the two languages until we have something that's sort of as close as it can be to one another. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a kind of process of simplification
Exactly.
with writing. That's very interesting. Very interesting, yeah. Like the architecture project, to combine ideas and simplify it to make it the more efficient, smart, relevant. Thank you.
So now we have our last question, and to finish, we would like you to talk about the path you took until you established your firm, and what advices would you give us soon-to-be architects?
So you want to start? Yeah, do all of you want to become architects? I'm just curious. Like, does everybody want to become an architect in the future? Is it, or are you guys not sure? Is anybody like for sure? Raise their hand, just out of curiosity. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you
for sure.
One, I mean, this is similar to the situation I have at where I'm teaching as well. It's not everybody is sure that they want to become architects, just because you know, it's very tough, and more there are more choices of occupations, right? So students aren't sure what they want. But I can start with myself. Before we established the firm, I studied architecture in Thailand and then in Japan. And then after graduating my master's, I went to Switzerland to intern as an architect. And then I came back to Japan to work in a Japanese firm. I worked there for about 3 years, and then we established our own firm. So the path I took before establishing the office was finding lots and lots of experience from around the world. I didn't really know that I wanted to establish my own firm until a bit later on. But I think it was about like trying to gain as much experience and as many perspectives on the world as possible, you know, before
You mean traveling or?
traveling, looking at buildings. We went to see a lot of buildings as a student, and just trying to put as many things in my brain as much as possible. And then which made it really useful, because when we decided to start our own firm, we had a library of resources and of things that we wanted to do, we wanted to make. So the path I took before starting the firm, I think, would be the path of trying to experience as many buildings and as many cultures as possible whilst training, technically or academically as an architect.
And for me, criticism is very important, I think. And how can I say? If the lacking of criticism, the architect or architecture becomes more like same as others. But if you have criticism, you can make more like a unique architecture, or you can become more unique architects. In other words, I think, I don't know, like
establishing a kind of unique viewpoint, maybe.
Yes, and criticism means, if I use other words, I think angriness or
frustration.
Frustration, yes.
Is part of, I think, establishing your own perspective. It's a good balance of being frustrated with what you're given and wanting to make better things, I think. But do you want to tell them about your path before establishing the office?
Yeah, at the first time I always say, but I work at the first, after graduate university, I work at a very small office, which means only five staffs or something. At that time, I could get the knowledge about architecture. How can I say, like a whole process. And after that, I moved to second firm, and then that firm is medium scale, which in Japan, which means 20 staff or something. And then at that time, I think I can experience more like a diverse project, I think. And after that, I moved to big firm, which means there is architect, I think 1,000, maybe 1,000 architect. In that time, I experienced more like a organized type architecture process, and I can get more like skills, I think. After that, I established our firm with partners. Partner.
Yeah, we met at an office when we were working there together, and then we wanted to do something of our own. And I was in Japan at the time, so we met in Japan. And then at the moment, I think we decided that we wanted to move to Thailand because there are much more opportunities for building for younger offices, right? Because there's there's some growth and construction happening in Thailand.
So in that sense, I think the location that we establish is also quite important, I think.
Yeah.
You can choose anywhere, actually, nowadays. You can go to Africa, or you can go to Thailand.
I mean, for us at the time, Thailand was quite a good balance. And still, it still is. It's a good balance of lots of different types of projects, lots of different types of clients. And there is still a lot of opportunity for young architects. Even if you're newly established, people will give you a project. They will, so, and it's quite a fresh and creative atmosphere of building right now. So yeah, that's what sort of brought us here as a starting point for our firm.
Path means career.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Natalia?
Yes. So would you like to share any last thoughts with us?
on your future, right? On
Yeah, it could be advices or show us something. It's up to you.
I mean, I'm not sure if I can show you anything that you don't have already seen, but I can give you sort of an advice on architecture. I think for me, there's more than one way to practice architecture. And I think deciding, we are great believers of architecture. We practice it and we believe it, and we believe that it can be better than what it is now. And even we can be better and we can make better things. But I think it's important to understand that there's many different ways of practice, and architecture isn't defined by creating a built building or creating a certain type of space, or there's many different ways, and you can sort of define that on your own as you sort of graduate and go into the future. I think future architects will no longer be just waiting for commissions and waiting for jobs to come to them, but they'll be the ones who will be creating their own jobs and then getting their own projects, right? So I think be really proactive about your stance, and then be clear about your stance and proactive about what kind of projects you engage in. And then I think that kind of finding your path and your stance about architecture has to start early. When like the things that we're doing now in our firm, I can trace back traces of it within my project as an undergrad student, right? Even though the projects are really bad, some of them and underdeveloped, I can see traces of my beliefs or my philosophy as an architect today coming from that time, right? So I think establishing a stance and being clear on what you believe in is very important, and you have to start sort of now, as a student. Yeah, I think that's it.
I have also a short question. Just continuing this discussion, maybe about your experience in Europe and comparing the experience that you have now. Would you say that this difference is more like cultural one, or it depends more of like construction of the agency and its values, its construction? What do you think about that?
I think the main difference we have cross-culturally is always about priorities. People in different culture prioritize different things, right? And I think, it would be really simple to say, okay, it's different because the regulations are different, and then the economy is different, the culture is different, the language is different, construction technique is different, everything is different. But if you boil that down and you filter that into one single word, I would say priority. I think values are different, right? Which means it affects the architecture directly. I'm not saying which one is better and which one is worse, but I know that the conversations and priorities are different. But at the same time, since everything is becoming more global, more and more it's becoming similar. This is what we're trying to do actually with our projects. Although we work in Thailand, I think sometimes people see our projects and they not sure where it is, or they can imagine it being in their own country or culture. So the sense of this similarities, I think, is more important than differences sometimes. And spotting those similarities are what we can do to move forward or to develop a more cohesive conversation within architecture, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to introduce you, Naima, maybe, because the C45 student don't know who you are.
I'm recently graduated architecture student. I also did one master programs of historical gardens, like heritage and landscape, and now I'm just exactly doing what we discussed, like I'm trying to resemble as many experiences as I can. And I'm glad that I could join you and listen to your presentation. And I think your projects are really smart and beautiful. And I wish you all the best with continuing that. It's a really good job.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining the lecture and asking the questions for the other students as well. So thank you so much.
And Laima used to be my student. She made a final diploma with me and also designed studio about architecture in the forest. So Folly in the
Amazing.
Forest was one of the references we studied during our studio 2 years ago. And your production is also very inspiring for us because we, and Laima especially is interested in the link between architecture and landscape. And your production is melting both discipline, we think, and the way your architecture is melting with the context and taking inspiration from it, as we could have seen with the first questions that the student asked you. If there is no other questions, maybe the 5 students, you could make a short conclusion just to end the meeting, or maybe you would like to add something else. It's free. It's very free.
Maybe I have another question about the experience before the studio, because Wtanya, you told us that you choose Switzerland for your experience, and I think that Switzerland in Europe is a quite particular country. It's so I was curious why this one and not another more typical, we can say maybe, European country.
I think at the time I was in Japan. I just finished my master's and then I was deciding like what I should do. Should I jump into work right away or just go somewhere else before coming back, because I was in Japan for quite a while. And then I think I found some similarities between Japanese and Swiss architecture that I felt quite connected to. I quite was interested in sort of the purity and perhaps the connection between structure and architecture and landscape and context, and this kind of the sense of aesthetic or the sense of space was something that I felt connected to or liked. It's quite strange, but I think there is some kind of connection between Swiss architecture and Japanese architecture. There's a sense of the structure and precision and beauty that I feel is very interesting. So that's why I chose Switzerland as my first sort of destination in experiencing architectural practice in Europe. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question as well. Before you mentioned Grasshopper and Revit, I was wondering, I'm curious, like, at what level do you use Grasshopper, and do you need a Grasshopper to make kind of some part of your model, and then you export it into Revit, and then you show it to the construction workers? Like, how do you communicate with construction workers? Do you need to do very precise detailed modeling in Grasshopper and then do it, then like make drawings in Revit, or how? Yeah.
Grasshopper is for me actually just like additional skills. If we don't have Grasshopper skills, we can build the architecture, I think. But Revit or ArchiCAD with BIM is also very convenient to make like drawings. But as like a communication.
But I think the question was for our project, right? Because it's super simple and doesn't seem like we need a lot of like high-tech skills to. I think we use Grasshopper more as something to save time during our study process. So when we're doing various studies and options, we use it with ourselves to just save time, right? And then with BIM or with BIM software, we use it so that we, again, to save time. But then the things that we give the contractor is still a lot of 2D drawings and physical models. I think because in Thailand there is still various types of contractors, and we're not always lucky to be able to work with somebody who has a huge team and has access to a computer always, right? Sometimes we're working with somebody very local.
Japan is also same.
And same in Japan, right? So we want to make sure that we're using a medium that everyone can understand, which is physical modeling and 2D drawings. But of course, behind all of these analog looking, physical communication mediums, we have this BIM model and Grasshopper study models and renderings and all of these things that help us communicate with each other, but less of to others, but more of amongst each other.
I'm not sure in the future.
In the future, maybe. I mean, because we're a small firm and we have to save time. So we try to employ all the methods so that we can make more options within a shorter time, or we can fix the model or fix the drawings in a more precise and faster way, which is what we try to do with technology and software.
Yes, also about in our class, we are going to make a kind of gift also for your time and this interview. So looking at your production, we decided to prepare some model, big scale model that we are still preparing. So in the future, maybe, not maybe, for sure, we will.
Thank you. We're looking forward to
this.
Amazing.
And yeah, thanks. I don't know if anyone else has some question, but in the other case, thanks for the time, all the answers, and again for the projects also as an inspiration or a way of study, a different way of making architecture for us.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions and the preparation.
Yes, kopkumka and arigato. I try my Thai and Japanese, very bad, sorry, very bad voice. And yes, thank you so much for your time and your very inspiring work. We are waiting for what's next with a lot of admiration also, because it's a simple project, but very, very smart. And the simplest are always the best. And a various production, although I think you are touching very different things. And very interesting about tectonics. We speak about the roof. Roof is the origin of tectonic. Tecton means roof in Greek language. And your projects are very tectonic and very interesting about this topic. Thank you so much. And we will be also very pleased to invite you in France in the future. Did you ever come? In France?
Yeah, we were there last year, but just for a very short time. So
in Paris?
In Paris, yes.
Okay, we missed you.
Yeah, it was over Christmas, so it was kind of a very short vacation. But next time, for sure, if we have the chance, we would love to go and visit.
Yeah, next time it would be great to have you in Versailles. Let's plan it. And I should be in Asia maybe in the following months. I think in February or March, to go to Thailand and then to Singapore and Malaysia to work with some colleagues. So we will keep in touch for the future. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening and a nice day for the French part. And talk to you soon about the work that the student will send you in the following months around January.
And finally, we present our gift to BTA, a model inspired by their work.